Hello, folks. James Hilliard with you. Recently had a chance to host a virtual event celebrating Comport's 40 years in business. I was joined by Jack Margossian, the founder and CEO of Comport, and also Joe Vidal was on board from HPE. He is the Greenlake Chief Technologist, and we did talk some tech. We're going to bring you those highlights here in just a little bit. We started the event with a little cheers to Jack and team for being in business for 40 years. One, Jack, a cheers to you. Congratulations on working with, supporting customers, working with partners for 40 years. That is quite an accomplishment. And I want to ask you, as we kind of kick things off here, you start the company, you found it. You probably weren't thinking exactly of an end point? Hey, I'll do this for 6 years and then move on somewhere. But did you imagine 4 decades? Was that ever in your mind, in your planning?
Not really. I mean, when you started, I got fired and then I started a company. So uh, you got to do something. You need a job. I
Pay
mean,
the bills, right?
you got to pay the bills. Exactly. And I knew what I wanted to do. I had the faith. I knew I could execute on what I wanted to do. So I gathered a few friends up to help me loan me a little bit of money, and we were off to the races. I also have to say I had a really good customer. I had
Okay.
a relationship with a customer who was there, and this business is all around personalities and the people you're with, and they have to know what they're doing. And I had a customer who had the faith in me to do what I needed to do to help them solve their problem. And well, from there was off to the races. That helped us. That jump started me. It was the relationships I had with those people.
Well, I have an opportunity to talk to a fair amount of teams, and over the last year or so, as we've been getting a little more back out, obviously virtual program today, but as some more of the business comes face to face again, been reminding, and teams have really resonated with the idea that look, it is people doing business with people. It's not company A and company B, right? It is the people aspect and those relationships there. And again, that sounds like that's continued to be a driving force for you. How have you continued to foster that over 40 years? Because that can be hard to sustain for a while.
Well, I think we built the culture in our company. I mean, it's built around what I believe, and that's an entrepreneurial culture. We expect the people to come in here and treat it like it's their own. And then when if you treat it that way, and everybody has that respect for each other, and you expect everybody to do what's the best for the whole organization, that kind of translates out into great customer experience, and the quality of the customer experience is great. If they do it like I do it, and I still do it. It's very successful. It's allowed us to be very successful in a very volatile business. I mean, I think of my vendors 40 years ago, and I think of who's still around. It's an interesting list. It's a short list.
It's a short list. I can imagine. Let's talk just briefly here. I want to talk about the change in technology, and you just mentioned that. Again, I have an opportunity talk to a lot of CIOs, IT directors, folks in the data center. And one of the things I've been hearing recently is their enthusiasm for the IT space. Again, right now, there have been some ebbs and flows as the years have gone on, but there's an excitement about the technologies that are available, what people can really do now and how they can really create. It's not just solving a little problem here, watching a little blinking light here. They feel more productive again, like some of these older guys have felt when they were starting.
If you think about 30, 40 years ago, even 20 years ago, we used to learn a product and we used to bring it to our customers, and we had a while to nurture the understanding of that product and how we brought it to market, and then what we did with it and how we implemented it and how it worked. And that was fairly steady. It had a 5-year, lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, things are happening so quick that the lifespan of what we're doing, you're not sure if you go out and buy a product today, what's going to be available for you in 6 months. They become obsolete significantly faster. So, you need people to help you manage that change. You just can't just dive in, because you have to figure out is what's it going to look like in a year from now or 2 years from now, and how you're going to manage that, because you can't make a large investment, especially in your business, and then all of a sudden find out that it's passé. They're no
Yeah, that's
longer,
worthless.
it's worthless. Yeah. And it
No, I
happens.
appreciate that. And again, a big cheers to you. Jack is going to stay on here with us if after we do have our little technical chat here, if you have any other questions, folks, for Jack and the direction Comport is going, what they do, how they support other teams out there, then by all means, feel free to engage with us. One of the best ways is either utilizing the chat. So if you chat in some messages, I'll see those and I can surface those. Or you can do the raise your hand. So if you go in Zoom to reactions, there's a little raise your hand bar. If you click that, I'll see that in the list and I can call on people. One of the people I'm going to call on right now is Joe Vidal, again, with HPE, the Chief Technologist for Greenlake. And really, Joe, I want to talk a little bit of a high level. I mean, you heard Jack talking about, obviously, relationships, such a big aspect of continuing in business for as long as Comport has. Also, we were talking about the changes of technology, and there is just a whole lot going on. And so, you've seen this as well, and I want you to comment a little bit on what you just heard from Jack.
Well, absolutely. And Jack, congrats. And we have a really nice cheers picture I'm going to share with everybody else. But I know you've been an HP reseller for a long, long time, probably your entire 40 years, right?
Yeah.
And Compact didn't even come around until probably 8 years later, right? And obviously, and I've been right there with you. So it's been fantastic. But yeah, when we look at the time frame that we're talking about, going back to say 1975, 1972-ish time frame, the only computers weren't personal computers, right? They were mainframe computers. And then we had somebody come out with something called the TRS-80 Model 1, right, with a whopping 4K of RAM. And it cost us $1,000, $999.95 from Tandy Radio Shack, right, for that thing. And the bottom line is that today, your cell phone has more technology in it than the space shuttle did on the first launch of the space shuttle. And that's a fact, right? I know we had several systems on there. We've got systems going up into space on the International Space Station, and we put them up there for 3 years, to see what's going to happen in space in 3 years. To Jack's point, it's hard to keep the technology working. And as everybody is looking towards some type of an as a service business, they want somebody else to worry about that. You keep it working for us, right? Because at the end of the day, if we're going to do a mission Mars and it's going to be 3 years there and back, I need to know it's working. And somehow you need to be able to manage that thing just like you manage everything in the cloud, right? And those are really where the stakes are today, right? Because when you're talking about pushing your data out to the cloud or to multiple clouds or a hybrid multi-cloud environment, which is what we're seeing today, it has to be secure. And, global data protection rights and privileges, GDPR rules and regulations are getting more and more complex by the month. And that's keeping us all on our toes.
No, it absolutely is. And one of the things that I know we'll be talking about, it goes back to Joe, and Joe's going to be sharing some slides here for us in a bit here and walking us through some things. But that change that we talked about, obviously we all got thrown a big old curveball 2+ years ago. And what I've been experiencing, and Joe, you and I have had a chance to talk before, is that there's a little bit of it's not a hard reset, but it is a reevaluation of, hey, we deployed certain technologies over the last couple of years, but now, to Jack's point, let's make sure that what we are deploying now or did deploy is going to be relevant in 6 months, in 12 months, ready for a potential disruption of some other kind down the road. And so that's where I know a lot of folks are also evaluating some of the technologies from HPE to see what can we have to really set ourselves up for success moving forward. And with that, really kind of let me send it to you so we can dive on into a few more slides that I know you want to share.
Sure, absolutely. And let me go ahead and share my slides. Hopefully you let me know when you can see them.
Full screen right now.
You'll see him now, right? Awesome. And I'm going to get back to that cheer slide in just a few minutes, but I just wanted to mention, James, you mentioned the fact that the change is happening so rapidly right now, and that's the one thing we can count on, right? But what businesses need is the ability for IT to stay ahead of those changes, right? To deliver the business the agility and the scalability without paying for it ahead of time, right? I mean, gone are the days, like Jack mentioned, back when I first got into IT, at Compaq and HP, we knew how many widgets we were going to sell from before the first one rolled off the manufacturing line. We knew we would be able to manufacture, let's say, 5,000 of these things, right? And we would sell them as fast as they could roll out the door, and we'd have 6 months to then update it and bring out the next one, right? And we knew that they were all going to be accounted for. That is not the world we live in today, right? We're not standing around fax machines waiting to figure out what color widget people need, because businesses are changing rapidly. More importantly, mergers and acquisitions are happening while we're changing the rules on security and compliance. And so it's really hard for IT to stay ahead of things and make sure that their data is not being trapped by the public cloud service providers. It's like a Jerry Seinfeld episode, right? I'll take your data and yours like reservations. I'll take the reservation, but keeping the reservation is really where the key is. And they're going to want to take all of your data. I'll take yours. Oh, I'm sorry. You want that data back? Oh, I'm going to have to charge you extra for that, right? So we have to take out the extra hidden costs, make it more predictable cost model, and at the same time, deliver less complexity, take the complexity out of the solution, right? So as you mentioned, James, COVID has created this boomerang effect, right? What happened at the beginning of COVID was we were all many of us forced out to the public cloud to stand up enough VMs or VDI instances to send our employees home in the first place. Now we're sitting at a need for VDI 2.0 or Cloud 3.0, where the boomerang effect is in full effect, meaning that there are a lot of companies out there finally realizing, okay, I can take a breather now. Now I need to look at redefining my cloud strategy and figuring out what needs to be in the cloud and what needs to be in a private instance. Maybe it's a private cloud, right? But I still need to deliver that cloud deliverable, that cloud experience to the business while reining in the data, right? So we call that first wave the infrastructure first wave. It was a cloud first mandate. Maybe it was a cloud only mandate for some of you. And then we went to a data first second wave that enabled or forced multi-clouds, right, to be stood up. Now, those created way more complexity. As you know, every time you add a component into a solution set, it doubles the complexity. Even if it's a third component or a fourth component, right? It doubles the complexity. And so what we're doing is we finally found a way to take the complexity out of IT, help our customers control their spend while accelerating the responsiveness of IT to the business and allowing you to pay for only what you use, which is less than what you need, right? So as we say, well, I'm not going to say the name of the company, but as you know, there's a popular insurance company that customizes car insurance, so you pay for only what you need. And the nice thing is that they are now, in fact, paying for only what they need, in fact, what they use in IT, because they're an HPE Greenlake private cloud customer, paying for only what they use. And what you use is hopefully less than what you need. Everybody needs some flexibility. You need 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 or 50% more than what you're actually using at any given time, depending on what type of business growth strategy or trajectory you're on. If you're doing mergers and acquisitions, or you're growing, you're getting ready to scale before the big Christmas buying season or whatever it might be during the holidays, right? You need to allow for that flexibility, but you don't want to have to pay for it until you start using it. And that's really the beauty of it. And it starts day one, right? Reducing the risk, reducing the complexity, and at the same time, adding this underpinning of a security pillar that delivers a zero trust security framework throughout the entire solution. And so that's finally allowing us to move from that cloud first or cloud only through the traditional IT hybrid reality now to a cloud smart, cloud everywhere reality that frees us of, as we call it, the egregious data egress fees, right? That some of those, in fact, every one of those public cloud service providers charge, right? When you want the data back. And if you're questioning just how big some of these data egress fees can get, let me share a couple numbers that are available on the internet, right? And since I got these off the internet, we know it must be true. And it's obviously public record. So I'm just resharing what I found. I didn't make any of these numbers up. But when you look at $12.33 million would be spent by NASA to manage the 247 petabytes of data that are out there in the Earth data cloud, right? So when you're creating all that information, or they're downloading information, they actually get charged every time they need to download it from the cloud. You look across Zoom, the platform for which we're using right now, right, was spending $11 million per month with Amazon, right? And we were able to get rid of the data egress fees entirely. Adobe, whoops, $80,000 daily charges for a single computing job, right? Capital One, Pinterest, Netflix, Apple, you get the idea. We've been saving so many companies money across the board, whether it's for AI as a service, VM as a service, simply infrastructure as a service. Maybe you want us to come in and help you deliver your own private software stack as a service to your business, truly giving you software-defined data center, right, across everything. We do that, right? And at the same time, we're even automating and delivering a private cloud for Zensact, who's creating autonomous test vehicles and the information and the systems that manage those. And you want those to be secure. Nobody wants to find out that their car's been hacked and turned into a weapon with you along for the ride. That's not good, right? You don't want to be there. You don't want to be any part of that, right? So HPE and Antonio Neri and our CEO went down this path started 4.5 years ago, but truly we've been delivering, we're going to call it cloud deliverables infrastructure service in one way, shape, or form since the year 2000. So for 22 years, we've been delivering flex capacity, instant capacity, or infrastructure as a service. Now we've rolled that into what we call our GreenLake private cloud. It's kind of what you see behind me that was featured in the Star Trek movie a few years back. And when they were asked, when the Star Trek folks went down to Earth and they were looking at the future of IT, and they said, what does the future of IT look like? It looks like GreenLake, the cloud that comes to you, right? It was a beautiful ad, but the truth of the matter is we have been on this edge to core to cloud journey, bridging the data at the edge, because as we all know, data has volume and velocity, and there's so much data out there that it actually has created its own gravity for many of our customers. And then there's so much value in the data that there are economies around the world trying to figure out ways to tax that data, right? We're trying to rein in that data and force you to store that data of their private citizenry within their geographic borders, right? GDPR rules are changing already in the state of California, the first one here in the United States, whereas Canada's been doing this for years, Latin America for years. It started in Europe, right? The need to have private citizens' data remain within the geographic borders of that particular entity. And now California's passed that law. We expect New York, Illinois, and several others to follow soon, which means it's going to radically change the complexity of how we manage data. We can't just be bringing it in from everywhere into this singular cloud environment. We have to enable micro clouds at the edge to be able to process that data where the data is being created, knowing then that the data is stored there. I can then aggregate the business insights into a central location without storing the physical personal data or information from any citizens outside of those local boundaries. And we're doing that by delivering a cloud that comes to you, delivering self-service and all these great things that you see in a slide. But more importantly, it's not just about infrastructure for service or as a service. We're also delivering key workloads, right? AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, biz apps, whether it's Oracle as a service, Epic Healthcare as a service. Maybe it's SAP as a service. Maybe it's hybrid or hybrid multi-cloud, hyperconverged HCI database as a service. You get the idea. Every one of these, we have 17 different categories, 70 plus different services, and we're doing it with a zero trust architecture framework wrapped around everything that we call the HPE Greenlake Edge to Cloud platform. So this kind of diagram that you see here shows how we have security and compliance built in, whether it's depicted top to bottom on the left or across the bottom. You can picture it either way. it sees and oversees everything and secures everything in the environment, from the first connection using AI to recognize where and when our users are accessing our network and or our services from, and are they authorized, and then are they accessing it from a known network, and is it a secure network? Is it a known device? And is this during the regular business hours or regular hours that this person normally connects to this, right? If any one of those things are true, then instead of just having to have two-factor authentication, we'd be forcing them to have a third multi-factor authentication to make sure that they're not a bad actor, right? Bad actors are really good at getting our security credentials. And it's not just the easy ones, the user ID and password. I know you may not think it's easy. It's easy for them to get those, right? It's a little harder for them to get a thumbprint or a fingerprint or a retinal scan, or know what your first dog's name was. Trust me, that's not hard to figure out either, right? If they get into your email or Twitter feeds or your Facebook or anything else, then they'll use social engineering to get that second layer. Then they're off to the races. So you have to be securing the entire thing. And we're using AI analytics even without the AI analytics as a service that we offer, whether in everything that we do here within GreenLake. And the nice thing is that we're also, James, we're not forcing our customers to change the way they do business, right? We've partnered with Comport and delivering these GreenLake solutions. And Comport, by the way, is one of the great partners, because I realize it's not all an HPE green world out there, right? You may have EMC gear or Dell gear or NetApp gear or Cisco gear, and you may need for us to implement that or add it into and automate it into a new private cloud deliverable for you. We can do that. Comport helps us with that. And Comport can also obviously get you all that other gear that doesn't come from HPE and help you integrate that and help us integrate that in there. But at the same time, we're not forcing you to change the way you do business or change your rules or security permissions and abilities, right? We actually can literally define an infinite number of console views for your workers, right? Task-oriented console views, whether it's line of business exec, CIO, CFO, CTO, IT director, and then more importantly, a different view for a server admin versus a network admin versus a storage admin. There are so many public cloud service providers out there that force you to have one godlike sysadmin, access point, and everybody has access to everything. That is not a good way to do business, right? And compliance rules and regulations dictate that you do something better than that, which is why we allow you to create any number of console views to your heart's content. Now, a couple different examples here. Yes, in manufacturing, we work with Dassault Systems, Katia, Siemens, PLM, and high-end AI systems, CAD, CAM systems, whether it's manufacturing, looking at manufacturing quality assurance, or helping you via an enhanced reality view of the manufacturing facility or wherever it is that you're working. Maybe it's retail, allowing your customers to have an enhanced reality view of the retail storefront, right? Whatever it is, to help them find their products faster. We're actually using AI to help the Home Depot track Home Depot customers throughout the stores so that they can interact with the customer and enhance their experience while in the store by offering discounts for a product that they might happen to be looking at right then and there, right? But more importantly, we're also tying that into the SAP real-time inventory database to see, maybe I want to offer them a discount on something just like that I have on high inventory right now. I'll text them or email them a discount for 15 to 20% for the next 45 minutes for this other product. And if we don't know who you are, you have never opted in for a text receipt or an email receipt from the Home Depot. I don't know who you are. I don't care. I'm going to send an advertisement to the end cap displays on each aisle in those high value aisles. That's the appliance aisle and the power tools where Tim the Toolman Taylor hangs out. Yeah. So nonetheless, great ways to leverage AI, right? And even in radiology, and who doesn't know somebody that's had to go in for a CAT scan or something else, or MRI, that forces you to lay down and hold your breath for a while? That's not fun, especially for those of us that don't like confined spaces, right? So we've worked with McKesson, we've worked with GE, we've worked with Philips to radically shorten the time it takes. In fact, in 0.28 seconds now, we can take 100,000 high definition images of a brain, and then in less than 2.5 minutes, stitch that together into a 3D model that the doctor can interact with in real time while you're still there in the lab. You don't have to go home, wait a few days and come back and have another appointment. These are things that can be done in real time. So if you're a healthcare service provider or you know one, and if you've ever had to be there, you understand the value here. Well, the bottom line is that cloud everywhere transformation with HPE and Comport, we've been partnering for many, 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 many years, right? We can offer the strategy, the transformation, whether it's data transformation, data center transformation. Maybe you want to get out of the business of data centers and partner with us in a colo, to host your information in a non-shared environment that is secure, right? With platforms, automation, cloud native containers for those legacy applications that can't be virtualized, we can containerize them, secure them, lock them down so that they don't impact the performance of other applications while still sharing infrastructure for you and you alone, right? And then of course, app migration, modernization, security and risk across everything. And I kind of really touched on everything else here, James. Just one last example here. If you're wondering just how secure HPE Greenlake's private cloud is, question no more. Basically, the Greenlake cloud is the power between, or the secret sauce behind the Pentagon's cloud, right? We also have now, for the Defense Information Services Agency that hosts the Pentagon cloud, now a massive storage contract to store that information. And when you talk about massive, how about a 1 million core artificial intelligence, high performance computing engine that we stood up for the NSA, ultra secure, and you want it secure. I want it secure. Why? They have your data and mine. They have all of our data. They know every phone call we've made and every text we've sent, every email we've sent. They may not have seen the details, but they know the metadata, who it was sent to, when, and how big. Right. So these are things that you want secure, and they are secure, right? We want you to be able to sleep well at night, wake up in the morning, say thank you. But nonetheless, I digress there. The bottom line is we're saving time, money, de-risking, and radically lowering the cost to deliver these solutions. We call it HPE GreenLake, our edge to cloud platform for edge to core to cloud. And it is HPE GreenLake, the cloud that comes to you. So with that, James, I know we've got a lot of financial flexibility costs. Yes, can we buy back some of their infrastructure to fund and fuel the next phase? Absolutely, right? The nice thing is that we can stand this up in way less than 90 days. You don't pay for anything until day 91, which gives us opportunities to run your existing applications in parallel on the new platform and your old platform. Once you get comfortable with it, start deprovisioning that old infrastructure. Allow us to buy it back from you, write you a check, and fund some of the other projects that maybe you thought you couldn't afford this year. So lastly, I'm going to offer up a GreenLake test drive. And the GreenLake test drive, I know that our folks at Comport offer you to dip your toe into the HPE GreenLake waters. I love that test drive with 13 different available tests and demos. And by the way, when you're doing this, we are actually allowing you to create a user ID in the actual live HPE GreenLake private cloud enterprise environment. This isn't a demo. This is real. You're actually taking it for a test drive. But before I turn this off, I just want to jump to the cheer slide. And cheers, Jack, for 40 years, Jack. That's just incredible, brother. I love you, man, and love the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, let me stop sharing here.
Well, let me bring up, as you're doing that, Joe, one of the things that there were a lot of takeaways, but two that were resonating with me. One, the security front. We are it's not only Oktoberfest for October, but you know what other month it is, Joe, right?
Oh, tell me.
Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We've been doing that for, I think it's almost 20 years. It might be 18 years. I think it was 04 that began.
Well, I thought you were going to tell me it's the most important quarter of our lives, right? Because this is the last month of HP's fiscal year. So this is always a busy quarter, a busy month for me.
It is a busy month, but cybersecurity awareness. And again, it's one of those that the security of the data is even more front and center here. And actually, Jack, let me bring you back in here. I want to play around a little bit more with the 40 years. Security 40 years ago. What was that conversation?
There wasn't one.
Exactly.
Right. Right. Did you have secure doors? Were there locks? Were you having people swipe in, badge out, or was there tailgating? That was the worst thing you had to worry about.
It was
If
hard to
that,
carry a mainframe
it
on your
was
back.
really, we had physical keys, right?
Yeah.
Right, Jack?
Yeah, yeah, you go in, there was a different world. It was a different world, terribly different world. Yeah.
These days with security, Jack, can I only assume what I've heard from so many other, I mean, that it's always the lead conversation now, or might be the secondary bullet point on an agenda of talking with teams
Oh,
about
no,
their
it's like
technology.
everything. It's like
Yeah.
everything. What people talked about 5 years ago and 3 years ago, now the first conversations about security.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an ongoing threat. Everybody's sitting there with ransomware rampant, and you hear about it all the time. It's a constant conversation. It's a place you have to be. And I would think that's probably number one thing we hear about in what we do nowadays.
Yeah, it just has to. And Joe, you brought up zero trust, not only as technology, but also as just a mindset that all of us have to have, whether we're a knowledge worker on the end, whether we're in the data center. We have to have that mindset that there are threats out there. There may already be compromises. How do we recover from those? How do we not make the silly mistakes? The other big takeaway, Joe, that for me was hearing some of the examples of the AI, because I still get in front of a lot of audiences and they're thinking, well, AI is a little ways off. And I used to, raise some hands like, who's really working on something with AI right now? And people are like, no, shaking their head. More and more, I'm talking to customers. They're saying, in the next year or two, we'll probably be there. You obviously gave big examples of some major cutting edge organizations, but it really does seem that this is kind of that precipice where we'll see a turning point with AI, and GreenLake is really powering a lot of that.
Yeah, James, and you know what? This is really I've been saying this for a couple of years that 2022 is the year for AI, and we really did break some new ground in AI, in the AI space, specifically bringing AI to the masses, right? It no longer costs you hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to implement any kind of AI. It can be done for literally tens of thousands of dollars, and it can be done in 45 to 60 days. And I'm talking about as simply as enhancing your consumer's experience in your store, or maybe it's leveraging security camera footage as well as people tracking a Bluetooth location enhancement tracking information to lower your security breaches in your stores and your stealing and products walking off the shelves. And then of course you talk about using AI for cybercrime and cybersecurity. Yes, we have to be doing that. There's no question about it. But the real breakthroughs are enabling the American worker and the American business to bring back some of that manufacturing and radically lower the cost of delivery and lower the cost of manufacturing by leveraging AI for QA, so that every product comes off 100% pass, right? And zero fail. And that's all the way to using AI in X-ray capable cameras on the manufacturing line to look through the multi-layer PCB boards to make sure that the soldering joints in between the layers are good, or looking through a weld joint, let's just say on an F-35 or something in the Lockheed facility, to see if those joints are solid. You don't want the wings snapping off in flight when they're pulling 10 Gs.
Right.
Or 7 Gs, as we know, because that's what causes our pilots to black out, right?
Ultimately want to be proactive in those situations.
I think we all learned
reactive.
a lot from Top Gun Maverick.
We did. We did. And folks, that is where we wrapped up the tech talk part of our conversation and our celebration of 40 years of IT innovation by Comport. A couple ways that you can reach out to the team if you want to learn more, comport.com. Also a phone number for you, 1-800-830-0880. And you notice we put Lori's email address on there. You can reach out to Lori and schedule a demo or test drive. Once again, folks, comport.com or 1-800-830-0880.